In this tutorial, we will be looking at mic placements on amps, and how you can get a desired sound of an electric or bass guitar from recording the amp. With regards to the amp, you need to make sure both you and the artist are happy with the tone of the amp and the sound that is coming out before you start recording. If not, change it until you are. Don't rely on changing the sound of the guitar whilst editing or mixing. Remember that the way you set up the gain on your amp can change the tone. Before choosing what microphone to use, as well as where and how to position it, you need to think about what you are recording. What is the role and tone of the guitar or bass you are currently setting up? And what is the balance of the song? For example, if you have a mix that has a lot going on and the guitar is a main feature, you would want the guitar to cut through the mix, and so you would want a brighter sound. If you were recording a rhythm guitar for a song that is a bit on the harsh or over bright side, you may want to record a darker sound. The last thing before we get into it would be to lift the amp off the floor or angle it upwards to minimize interference. Choosing a microphone. Dynamic microphones are good to make sure you don't capture spill from anything else in the room with the amp. They are great for close mic placements, as it is suited for high volume levels. Condenser microphones work well a bit further back from the amp, in combination with another microphone. Ribbon microphones also work well in combination with another microphone, to capture warmer tones. But be aware they are very sensitive and should not be used to pick up very loud sounds. There are a few things to keep in mind when placing microphones on the cone of an amp. Placing a microphone in front of the center of the cone will result in a crisper and brighter recording, while moving it towards the outside of the cone will result in the recording having a darker, more mellow and softer sound. If it is placed closer to the amp using the dynamic microphone, you will have more low end on the recording due to the proximity effect, while placing it further back will lessen the proximity effect. This can also be changed by placing the microphone off axis. This is done by angling the microphone slightly, which will lessen the chance of proximity effect and roll off some high end, but it overall gives you a smoother sound. Here, using a dynamic microphone, 6 positions are shown. The microphone is close to the cone in the center. The microphone is close to the cone in between the center and the edge of the cone. The microphone again is close to the cone on the edge. For the next 3 placements, the microphone will be in the same positions, but further back from the amp. On center, in between, and on the edge. Here, we do the same thing, but with a condenser microphone. On center. In between. And on the edge. Further back from the amp. On center. In between. And on the edge. I will show another 3 positions, again the same as the first 3, but these ones are off axis. For this example, we use a dynamic microphone. On center. In between. And on the edge. For this example, we're using a condenser microphone. On center. In between. And on the edge. The last 3 positions are on a bass amp using a D112 dynamic microphone, and then again with the DTP640 condenser microphone. On center. In between. And on the edge. On center. In between. And on the edge. This is a good way to start your session once you have found the tone you and your guitarist want to use for the recording. Electric guitar mic positions. The first technique is one that I've often used in studio. It is an XY pattern using a condenser and a dynamic microphone. I usually place them just off center, with the condenser aimed towards the center of the cone, and the dynamic aimed towards the outside. The second technique gives a fuller and more complete sound, using two of the same microphones. Here, we're using two AKG C414s. Place the front and back microphone at the same distance from the amp. Either at the preamp or using your software, flip the polarity of the signal coming in from the back microphone. This third technique uses two SM57s. We'll have one pointing straight at the cone and the other next to it at a 45-degree angle. These microphones are usually blended 50-50 in the mix. Finally, using two microphones, place one in front of the cone and the other about a half a meter from the amp. These two signals can be combined to get a fuller sound, usually using a dynamic microphone on the cone and a condenser further back. If you are using a technique that uses two microphones, you could pan the guitar left and right for some interesting effects, and to open up the song for the vocals. Passive DI boxes slowly started getting used more in the mid-60s, while active DI boxes were only designed and sold about 10 years later. Before this, people only recorded with microphones on the amp. When DI boxes became more popular, especially after active DI boxes were released, the trend went the other way, and a lot of producers started using only DI boxes. At the moment, it is more common to get recordings of bass that have used both a microphone on the amp and a DI box. Although you get a warm and good sound from the DI box recordings, the amp can help the bass stand out more in the mix. To mic up the bass, we have just put the microphone that we chose earlier quite close to the grill and mixed it with the sound of the DI box. Here is just the DI box. Here is just the amp. So just to go over what we looked at today. We looked at choosing the tone of the guitar before you start recording. We looked at choosing between a condenser and dynamic microphone and placing them at different positions on the cone. We've also looked at 4 different ways to place microphones around the amp for an electric guitar. And lastly, how to record a bass and the difference between the sound of a microphone on the amp and the DI box.